Weightlifters, it's Weed. Hope you're doing well. This is the second lesson on sports nutrition and performance and everything else related to that. It sounds very lofty. Tamp those dreams down, please. So for part 2, we're going to be talking about metabolism and how that works somewhat, and continuing from our discussion on nutrition. So if you recall, the first part we were talking about the 6 essential nutrients, and you should know the 2 types of all of them except for the W, which 3 provide calories and how they're all essential to your health and well-being. There's going to be questions on the nutrition quiz and also the final exam. So remember, you can get a PhD in nutrition if you want to, and we are just barely scraping the surface in a 1-credit weight training class. You have the rest of your life to figure it out, and a lot of it depends. So what we're doing for the hour and 20 minutes of class 2 times a week, that's not what is holding you back from achieving your goals. It's probably all of the other hours of the 5 other days and the 22 hours and 40 minutes of the days that we meet for class. So part 1, you were supposed to learn about the 6 essential nutrients and how they affect performance, and then also the vital importance of carbs and proteins along with fats, vitamins, minerals, water. So we want to look at the 3 parts of metabolism and how that works. So activity and exercise are the best medicine for any situation, unless of course it's an injury, then it's not. So metabolism, there are 3 parts to metabolism. There is the BMR, the basal metabolic rate, also known as the resting metabolic rate, which is about 60 to 75% of your daily metabolism, and that varies from day to day depending on the other 2 factors. The other factors are physical activity and thermic effect of food. So physical activity, that's any physical activity that you do during the day, whether that is driving, walking, picking your nose, writing, texting, anything that requires movement. That's part of that 15 to 30%. Some people are more active, therefore they burn more calories. Other people are more sedentary, they burn less, but it's still 15 to 30% of your overall metabolism. And thermic effect of food, so when you break food down, it requires energy for the physical digestion and also the chemical digestion. It costs energy for your body to produce those enzymes, to pass it along through the system, to remove it, etc. So all of that has an effect on your metabolism. So this video is included on the webpage on D2L. It's about 2 minutes or so, and he kind of goes through and dispels the belief that a calorie is a calorie, which the sugar industry has been promoting for almost 100 years now. It doesn't matter, that's what they say. It doesn't matter what type of calorie it is, the same. So he'll say, I think it's kale and broccoli. 100 calories worth of broccoli is going to have a different hormonal response on the human body than 100 calories of kale. So a calorie is not a calorie. There are other factors. Is it processed, etc. with that? So for, again, breaking those down, BMR, basal metabolic rate, here are what they look like as a review. And one of the assignments that is on D2L, which you don't have to do because I'm not going to check it or anything, but you can find out what your BMR is by clicking on a link that says BMR activity, and you can also find your ideal body weight. You don't have to share that with me. That's just for your information. This is not true, but it sounds good if it was. So Alan Cosgrove is a fitness professional, and I've seen him present a number of times at the NSA National Conference. So possibly he knows what he's talking about, but he talks about the 5 steps to healthy weight management. The first 2 steps are nutrition and nutrition. So it's what we put into our cake hole that's going to be the biggest problem for all of us. Most of us are not disciplined when it comes to eating. We see a donut, we eat a donut. We see a cookie, we eat a cookie, whatever that is. Most of you are on the seafood diet. You see food and you eat it. You're not restricting it by calorie control. The next one, which is different than most people think, is weight training. And the reason why weight training is effective for weight management, number one, because there's the potential to build muscle. That's not our goal. Size is not the prize. Swole is not the goal. But when you have strong muscles, we'll see later on that it burns calories just existing. Fat barely burns any calories. You also burn calories during the activity, whether it is grip it and rip it like you're supposed to be doing in our class, or it's go to Planet Fitness and sit down for 5 minutes and move the machine and then update social media for 5 minutes. You're still burning some calories. And if the intensity is high enough, you have EPOC, which is excessive post-exercise oxygen consumption. That can last up to 24 to 48 hours. Now that's intense type of training. That's very little recovery. So that can stoke the fires of your metabolism. Referring back to the Planet Fitness sitting down, probably not going to experience a lot of EPOC. You're only going to do it during. Interval training, such as HIIT, high intensity interval training, P90X, Insanity, CrossFit, a lot of those are interval based, where you put a load on and then you recover. Put a load on and recover. If you've done swimming or running, you've probably done some interval training before. And that burns a lot of calories during. And again, if it's elevated, it stokes those metabolic fires, you have EPOC. The reason why everyone thinks that aerobic or training is the way to burn calories is because everyone has seen someone who is rail thin and you're like, wow, that person's thin because they run. That is not the case, because for aerobic training, you actually only burn during. And hormonally, if you look at what super duper long distance running does to you, it might actually be a detriment to your metabolism based on the hormonal response of that. So you can consider those and see if it's true or not. And remember, we're all a sample size of 1. So the idea of caloric balance, and again, this is partially from the sugar industry, and the federal government says it as well, and I'm not saying any conspiracies, but they say, listen, if you want to lose weight, and there's a video, I don't know if it's on the next slide, it's also on the webpage, about Adam Ruins Everything. It's only 3 minutes or something like that, talking about how the government actually came up with that. So the idea is, if your calories in equals your calories out, you maintain the same weight. And that's assuming that every calorie has the same response hormonally. And we already saw that previous video. So if you want to lose weight, you have to somehow decrease the calories in or increase the calories out, and you lose weight. Or if you want to gain weight, you have to increase the calories in and decrease this, or some sort of combination of those. And they found through research that there's actually individuals who try this, what we would call a diet, restricting their caloric intake. Their body is going to respond hormonally by the food that they actually take in stored as fat for the future, because they think they're in a period of starvation. So this might not happen, and if it does, it might not happen for the entire time that you're cutting your calories. And you're also losing muscle during that time. So here is what you actually want to think about when you're looking at the calories in, calories out. Look at your appetite, the foods consumed, the calories absorbed, the psychological factors. If you want to get into insulin resistance, this is something that's very interesting with calories absorbed. Then what is your metabolism at rest? How much through exercise? How much through physical activity? And then how much burned metabolizing food? And also remember, there's a hormonal response to that. All of you probably know individuals who are very thin that eat whatever they want to and they never gain an ounce. Is that because they're out there burning more calories, or is it because it's a hormonal response that they're going to just do? So most of you have seen Super Size Me, a one guy eating at McDonald's, and a lot of people think, hey, that's actually what happens to everyone. Remember, that was one guy, one time. This individual right here, if you watch the video, which there's a link on the webpage, it's about 20 minutes, he is a science teacher in Iowa, and in 2013 he ate 180 days in a row at McDonald's. That's 540 meals. And he actually lost weight, and his blood work came back, and it was better than prior, even though that's counterintuitive to eating McDonald's. Now, he did calorie control. He restricted his dietary intake to about 2,000 calories a day. But remember, that's one guy, one time. If you want to watch that, it's kind of interesting. So going back to the hormonal response. So looking at these two different types of cow. This is called a Belgian blue cow. It's not actually blue. I don't know why it's called that. But it's a bull or a steer. And you can see a difference. Does this cow get to the pasture gym more frequently? Are they using steroids? Or is that just because of the DNA that this cow has versus, I believe this is a Holstein. I should know. I'm from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. But they're two different cows, but the musculature is different based on DNA hormonal responses. If you look at the statistics since 1990, and this is 2020, so it'll be interesting to see what the next update looks like this. The late 80s and early 90s, because I was alive, is when the government said about going to non-fat and low-fat. And look at the obesity rate and how that has changed. So remember, whenever there's non-fat or low-fat, what does that mean? They've added a bunch of sugars, right? So increase in processed foods and sugars in all of our food since the 1990s. People go out to eat more frequently. We're less active now. We have more internet. In 1990, you could not go to the grocery store and have someone bring your groceries out to you. You actually had to walk in and buy them yourself. Now, with all the convenience that we have because of the internet, etc., we're not as active. So there's a combination of factors, but you can see this is not good. That's over 30%. And it seems to only continue. So this is one equation that you can do the old way. I had to do this in graduate school, where you have to figure out what your metabolism is. And just as a heads up, the Harris-Benedict equation was done mainly on Caucasian males. So if you are not a male, this might not apply to you. If you're not Caucasian, this might not apply to you. The chapter 9 homework that it says, or the website, you want to be aware, I don't know what equation that is, so that might not be 100% accurate for you. But this is what they came up with. A lot of times, individuals say that women's metabolism slows down. If you look at this is minus 4.7 and this is minus 6.8. So actually, males' metabolism slows down faster than women's, according to Harris-Benedict. So this is why I promote resistance training. Here are some of the metabolic benefits of that. And some of these running, I'm not exactly sure, but obviously they have a beef against running. But there are benefits to resistance training as a form of activity. I realize not everyone's into that. So looking at these pictures, here's what 5 pounds of fat looks like versus 5 pounds of muscle. And if you reflect back to when I was talking about Alan Cosgrove and ways to maintain a healthy weight. Now remember, a lot of times people use resistance training and they're trying to lose weight, and what happens is they actually gain muscle and they lose fat. And if you look at that, the scale is going to be the exact same at the end of this time period where the person gains 5 pounds of muscle and has lost 5 pounds of fat. So the scale is going to say the exact same number, and people are going to be disappointed by that because they're going to be like, oh look, the number's the same. You didn't lose any weight. Are you going to look physically different if you gain this and lose that? Absolutely. And also, remember I talked about metabolism, resting metabolism. Look, each pound of muscle burns 30 to 40 calories a day, just sitting there. 1 pound of fat burns 1 to 2 calories, a day. So the more of this you have, the more your metabolism burns. So theoretically, there are 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. So if you want to lose 1 pound of this, and this is assuming that calorie control works, you have to burn 3,500 calories more than you take in. If you divide that by 7, that's 500 calories a day. So if you only need 2,000 calories a day, you are cutting out 500 calories a day out of 2,000. That is 1/4. If you want to lose 2 pounds a week, usually the recommendation is 1 to 2 pounds a week. That's 7,000 calories. That's 1,000 calories a day, or increasing the amount. If you want to gain a pound of muscle, you have to consume theoretically 2,500 calories worth of protein, which would be 625 grams. That's not in one day, kids. Not one day of gaining a pound of muscle. But think about it. From the time you were born, you had to eat a lot of food to get to the size where you are right now, whatever that is. So which component of metabolism burns the most calories? There are 3. There is basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate, physical activity, or thermic effect of food. So this is where you could play along at home. And then returning to physically literate, one of the goals that I have for you is to improve your physical literacy so that you'll have a desire and motivation, knowledge, and skill to maintain a health-enhancing level of activity for the rest of your life. So again, there's going to be this where you can click on this link and you'll be able to find what your ideal body weight is, range. You don't have to share that with me, and then what your BMR is. And again, that's only 1/3 of one of 3 parts of your metabolism, 60 to 75%. So can you evaluate metabolism is based on your BMR and the amount of daily activity, considering the hormone response and also the foods that you eat. So if you have any questions, check out D2L and or email me. Take care, good luck, move well, move often.